To start off with our first impression segment, brand new Nickelodeon cartoon just dropped a couple of weeks ago. It's from the people who made Big Nate, or AKA the book creator who made Big Nate. Also had a brand new cartoon that just came out on Nickelodeon, and it's called Max and the Midknights.
Max and the Midknights, let's go!
I say Midnight. Sorry about that.
No, think Midnight.
Yeah,
Midnight.
yeah. No. I watched second episode and it was midnight. Like they're not the nights. They're calling midnights, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of clever word phrases right there.
Yes.
All right. So yes, we are now going to give our first impressions of Max and the Midnight. So I mean, when you first heard about this book series coming to Nickelodeon, how was your response when it came to it?
Now, here's something I got to bring up. Prior to Max and the Midknights being announced to be on Nickelodeon, I have not read the book series, nor have I really heard of the series itself. But I was for sure really excited for this because Nickelodeon definitely needs this, because Nickelodeon needs more variety. And the more variety in Nickelodeon, the better, because we need more shows than just SpongeBob and Loud House. So this was definitely something that looked very promising, and it's something that can fill up the table in terms of Nickelodeon.
I thought, first off, I heard about this show, I think a couple weeks before it first debuted over at Nickelodeon on YouTube. But I also did notice the fact that, like, the art style looks very familiar to Big Nate.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh, snap, they actually were both created by the same book creator.
And it makes all the more sense. Not only that, but Max and the Midknights and Big Nate they share a similar tone. They share similar humor. They share similar cast of kid characters. Like, you know how both shows focus on
that's
kid
true, because
characters.
like Big Nate, it's obviously Big Nate, just like him, like, you know, being the leader and everything. And then you have Max, who's this like tomboy feminine girl who's like trying to be like the leader of the group, trying to rescue his uncle and trying to save Byjovia.
Yeah, and I gotta say, Max and the Midknights, when I first watched this, like when I first watched the first two episodes, I was enthralled by this. I was actually having quite fun with it because of its fourth wall breaking humor, which is pretty hilarious, and you got this rockin' music soundtrack, which it blends rock and roll with this.
I find it odd just because it's like it's supposed to be in the medieval ages, and then you have rock and roll literally as the the soundtrack for this particular show.
I think it's because they want to emphasize and empower the girl power aspect of Max and the Midknights, because of the fact of how Max is this tomboy fighter who wants to be a knight, and so did she
want to be a knight? It just feels like she wanted to be a knight because she wanted to rescue her uncle.
She wanted. Now, being a knight is something that she's been wanting to become even before her uncle got kidnapped, because she wants to be a fighter. She wants to fight monsters.
Not be like a jester or whatever her uncle was doing.
Her uncle. So what her uncle was is that basically, her uncle was a troubadour, and what a troubadour is that they go around in each village and they perform songs in order to collect money. But the problem is that Uncle Budrick isn't really the best singer in the town, in the village. In fact, he actually kind of sucks at it, which is why they get chased. Max and Budrick get chased around, like, out of the villages because they can't stand his singing. So one by one, things don't go well for the duo.
Yeah, that actually happened from that first episode too, because I get to see like how Max and the uncle again was Budrick.
Uncle Budrick.
Yeah, how those two ended up like becoming to be. But we also do get to see in the second episode, apparently she was like an adopted child. So
she was an adopted child, and they've been together ever since.
Yeah, this is quite interesting. So if anything, again, we're going to break down like everything that's going on in this show, because there's just a lot to talk about when it comes to it. So let's actually start it off with the first topic that we have here is the story, because it's set. This whole cartoon, as you see, is set in the Middle Ages. About 10-year, this series talks about this 10-year-old girl named Max who resides in the kingdom of Byjovia. Actually, did she reside in Byjovia? I think she literally just moved into Byjovia.
She moved in. She moved into Byjovia, and she's been there in the kingdom of Byjovia ever since. Like she didn't stay there for life, but they have, like, in the context of the show, Max and her uncle end up going to Byjovia, and they've been staying ever since.
Yeah. Now the kingdom is ruled by this king called King Ghastly, who abuses his power and makes the residents in the kingdom miserable. After Uncle Budrick gets imprisoned by Ghastly, Max forms his own group of friends. And they all grow through obstacles like the Royal Guards and monstrous beasts to battle King Ghastly's dictatorship. So that's the whole premise of Max at the Midknights. So what are your thoughts on the whole premise of the show?
I really dig this premise because it's definitely a unique take on the Middle Ages, because it shows this kid friendly environment in terms of how the Middle Ages presented Max the Midknights. It gives us it gives us this it gives us this fun, lighthearted atmosphere, while at the same time shows this dark element of Byjovia, and especially when it's people by King Ghastly, like everything is miserable there.
So I think the first thing that comes up is the fact that in the first couple of scenes from the show, we get to see Max and Budrick, both of them just doing their doing their thing, going through towns and just entertaining people. Yeah. That is until they go to Byjovia, and apparently we get to see a lot more story in Byjovia, because apparently Budrick was from Byjovia and then just left Byjovia.
Yeah, it's because Budrick. Now Budrick said that Byjovia is the kingdom in which boys learn to become knights, and Budrick didn't want to be a knight.
Which makes sense. I mean, he didn't have the freedom to actually become a knight himself, so he just wanted to move out just for it. If that's the rule of that particular kingdom, then yes. Then move out or something.
Max, however, has a completely different outlook in terms of being a knight, because she wants to be a knight herself. But the problem is that due to the Middle Ages, and this is something even the show presents, that the show brings up as well, is that since Max is a girl, she's unable to become a knight, but it's her determination. It's her being driven by her goal to become a knight that, pushes her through the course of the story.
Right. So far from the story, I just see from the first 2 episodes I saw from the story, it just tells me there's more into the story, because general, you get to see what Byjovia is, and you get to see who King Ghastly is and what he has done to Byjovia, and why we need a person like Max to come into the story so that she can save Byjovia at the same time, also save her uncle. And who knows how the story is gonna go, because it's more of her leading this 3 group of friends to pretty much rescue her uncle, and then also save whatever is going on by Byjovia, and a bunch of other things happening. Again, I don't know the book series, but it's kind of feeling that way.
It pretty much is. And even if you haven't read the book series, let's say you've only watched the show like we have, this is still a great introduction to the entire lore of Max and the Midknights overall.
Yeah, the particular things that happen in this show is the fourth wall breaking. Kind of reminds me of what Lincoln Loud does, to talk to the audience. Max does this a lot, by the way, in the first 2 episodes. So what are your thoughts about this whole fourth wall breaking that she's doing?
The whole fourth wall breaking really does add to the humor that is presented in Max and the Midknights. That while, yes, it is a Middle Ages show, a Middle Ages kids show, it finds a way to sort of make fun of itself. It finds a way to make you feel like, okay, this is a humorous kids show at the end of the day, despite the fact it takes place in the Middle Ages. This is similar to Dave the Barbarian, where Dave the Barbarian is a show cartoon that takes place in the Middle Ages, but it has some fourth wall breaking humor to it.
Why would you even bring up Dave the Barbarian? I think this is a little bit better than Dave the Barbarian.
It's debatable.
Debatable? I'm sorry, this is much better.
Hey, look, I love Dave the Barbarian, okay? I'm just saying, Max and the Midknights could be better than Dave the Barbarian, who knows? But it's still too early to tell, because we're into 2 or 3 episodes of the show.
Yeah, I know. But I feel like there's, again, so much story when it comes to Max and the Midknights right now. Just telling me this is going to be something good coming up, Yeah,
absolutely. The moment I've seen the first 2 episodes, I was already, engaged with it. I was already like, okay, you got my attention. I'm gonna watch this all the way through. And unfortunately, the episodes do air on Wednesdays, so it's during the time when we're doing these. We're doing recordings.
Yeah, you'll watch the new episode after. I hope you got it recorded on your DVR or something.
Yeah, I do. So
yeah.
So I'm gonna be watching it right after. So
okay, so yes, Max. So my thoughts about Max and the fourth wall breaking. I like her characterism. just because she's like her characteristics are actually really like how do you explain it? Like very tomboyish for sure.
Yeah.
Like she is very funny when it comes to like the fourth wall breaking that comes up. And she gives out some important facts. She's being sarcastic. She's like really funny, I would say.
Yeah.
When it comes to like, you know, teaching the audience about what's going on and like her story and what's happening in Byjovia, etc.
Yeah, and she's actually the first in Byjovia to stand up to the evil King Ghastly himself, because everyone in Byjovia is afraid of the dude. But you see Max, Max sees King Ghastly treating Simon and Millie with, you know, such harsh contempt despite the fact that they're kids. And then Max stands up to King Ghastly, like kind of like standing up to a bully and be like, hey, back off.
Well, it looks like she was actually a courageous girl herself. I mean, have you seen like in the first episode where she like tried to evade like those villagers that are trying to chase them down?
Yes.
And she does all this stuff like in the back and then gets back into the cart and stuff. And she looks like she's a kick-ass person too. I mean, like with all the things that she's been learning, how to run, get back into the cart, like using the trees and like using acrobatic skills and stuff. And I'm like, wow, where have you learned that?
Yeah, and she was even able to knock out a thief, because there was also a thief that tried to rob Max and Budrick, but before he could do so, Max knocks him out hardcore with like the rock.
Yeah. I'm just saying that she's very great character. Again, we're gonna talk about the characters later.
Yes.
Yeah. But yes, that's one thing that was kind of particular when it comes to this show, is just that there is fourth wall breaking, which kind of gets, you know, like Loud House vibes, right?
it sort of does. It's more like Big Nate vibes. Is
this Big Nate actually does the same thing too?
Big Nate has done. I think he's done some fourth wall breaking here and there. I haven't watched much Big Nate in comparison to Max and Midnights, so I've seen some Big Nate. It's fine for what it is. But I feel Max and Midnights is superior.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know in particular. We just only watched 2 episodes, dude. Yeah. One thing about this particular show is the fact that there is a huge soundtrack when it comes to it. Like every kind of like important scene in this show has a soundtrack, has a song that kind of sounds badass and things like that. How do you like the songs that gets displayed in the show?
I do like that the songs it's a combination of, you got some songs that are rock and roll metal, which like I said, does emphasize...
I would say rock and roll, not metal. Metal would be like really hardcore. I just feel like it's more like, you know, hardcore rock, and it's kind of like, you know, something that you hear from like those poppy like rock bands. Like
hardcore rock may have an awkward blend in a Middle Ages show, but again,
that's what I was kind of thinking too, because it's like, wait a minute, this is medieval. Are we supposed to be like, you know, like having those little like fancy tunes that you hear from the classical days instead of actually hearing rock and roll? And I'm like, well, this kind of like changes it up a little bit, right? When it comes to the mix of the soundtrack or the background sounds that they have over there.
But like I said, there could be an argument that the hard rock, songs do help emphasize Max's, girl power vibe, but there's also the blend of, folklore songs, folk songs.
That's what I'm trying to think about too, because I'm like, if we're going to go back into the Middle Ages, there should be some like folklore songs like you're talking about. But then most of the soundtrack has mostly been just hardcore rock and roll, which I thought was pretty cool, because like during an action scene, you get to hear the rock and roll vibe happen, where you get to see like Max and the Midknights literally all going out doing their own missions and stuff, and you hear that rock and roll music come along. It just makes it feel pretty like, oh, intense, like, oh my god, this is something exciting.
Yeah, and you just can't help but headbang to it. It's those hardcore rock songs, you just can't help but headbang to it, and it keeps you engaged. When you watch the action scenes in Max and the Midknights, it really does emphasize the action scenes so well.
Yeah, and again, I think if anything, like people might get a little bit weirded out with the fact that rock and roll's in a medieval show, but it does work out. I think it works out in the end, because like you really want to see like the badassness that I want to see all those action scenes have a little bit of like emphasis on it.
Yeah, and there's also some musical Broadway as well, because this is one song that the Byjovians sing in this.
Oh yeah, I don't get that. That was weird. That was weird. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, why y'all in sync about an introduction song about a town?
Yeah, and I think like it's a mixture of. I like how the soundtrack is a blend of all kinds of genres, from hardcore rock to medieval ages folklore song, which is most appropriate. And then there's also this like musical number. I'm thinking to myself, are we getting more musical numbers in the future of the show?
I will not be surprised about it. I mean, like, can we have more like plays and stuff. I imagine plays that would have like some musical numbers and stuff here and there. But yeah, I mean, that's things that are kind of standing out when it comes to the story as well as the whole entire show itself. Anything else that stands out to you when it comes to the show?
Yes, I just like to say, like the world building. If you look at the world building of the Max and the Midnights, you look at the world building of Byjovia, it definitely looks pretty legit.
What do you mean by world building?
The world building of the world of Max and the Midnights, we see different villages and you see the landscapes.
Yeah. But then again, the first 2 episodes only was about Byjovia. That's it. The only thing that's new was a new village that they passed by, and I feel like it's just a village that we're not going to see again.
Yeah, and I know that we're talking about the animation later on, but to answer your question, is there anything else about the series stands out to me the most? It's that's my answer.
Yeah. One thing I want to bring up is the fact that like there is some common thing. There are like some common new thing. Sorry, I don't know how to explain this because like I remember there's this one scene where like a character in the show is retired and he literally goes into a retirement home, and it's like a literal retirement home where he literally just like plays bingo with like old folks as well as watching TV. And I'm like, TV in the medieval ages? What the heck?
Yeah. Yeah, apparently this wizard, this wizard could somehow, like travel through time as well. Yeah. Because the television doesn't take place.
I know we're trying to be like funny. That's one thing, but like to have a TV in a freaking medieval show, like I get it. It's funny, but like it kind of weirded me out. I'm like, what? Maybe I'm just being too legit here or something like that, but. I do like the gag. I do like the gags that they're having in the shows. That's one thing I also wanted to point out, that there's some pretty funny gags that happen in the show. And I think it's pretty good that they're actually making the comedy aspect of the show like really legit.
They really are. There's some pretty laugh out loud moments, especially amongst the group as well.
So let's actually move ahead and actually talk about the characters of the show. There's a bunch of characters that are already popping up from the first 2 episodes, but let's actually talk about these characters in particular. Let's actually start off with the main heroine, Max, who is a fierce 10-year-old girl who dreams about becoming a knight despite taking place during the Middle Ages. Your impressions on Max so far?
My impressions on Max so far is that, yeah, she's a pretty kick-ass girl. I really do like her and her determination to become a knight and stand up to the evils of tyranny in Byjovia. Now, of course, a tomboy wanting to be a knight or be a fighter is nothing new. I mean, I've seen that kind of trope before, like Arya Stark for Game of Thrones. But this is done in a way that's, it's a nice blend of her adventurous, actiony side, and there's also the humorous side of Max.
I don't think we have much girl power shows in a while. I might be wrong actually, because we just had Owl House and Amphibia. Yeah, I know, but like then again, Disney TVA does a lot when it comes to girl power shows. What about Nickelodeon? Did we have any girl power shows on Nickelodeon? I don't think so.
I mean, you could argue Fairly Odd Parents and You Wish because Hazel.
Okay, yes, but I think that's one of the. Again, look back before Fairly Odd Parents and You Wish. How about the characters that led before that? You got Lincoln, you got SpongeBob, you have the people from Rock Paper Scissors, you have Big Nate. Look, they're mostly guys, right?
Yeah.
So why don't we have a main girl hero a main heroine actually come into a show and actually lead their like troop into like a big show like this? And I kind of do like Max being like a really awesome like kick-ass girl at the moment. She's knowing how to protect herself, how to protect her friends, and like trying she has a goal in mind and she wants to get it done as soon as possible. Yes. And she could be able to like I remember from the second episode, she was gonna go by herself to go and rescue her uncle, but thankfully, like her friends came along and look, they at least were able to see him before they mission failed.
Yeah, because like Budrick did once live in Byjovia, now he's coming back again. So you definitely see Budrick and Max You see them with the Byjovians, and it's a way to introduce us to Byjovia. So yeah, it's and then you see the introduction of more characters later on. So
okay, sure. Let's actually talk about Simon then, who is an orphan who serves as an advisor for Mac. Okay, so when I first saw Simon, he was like about to get arrested with like what, being barefoot and stuff. With his sister, right? Millie's his sister.
Millie and Simon are friends, I believe, but
yes. I don't know. I thought they were like brother and sister or something because they both were about to get arrested.
They both were about to get arrested for being barefoot, and apparently being barefoot is one of the things that is banned in Byjovia.
That's weird. Like, then again, Byjovia, I mean, we'll talk about Byjovia later. I'm just saying, like, this Simon kid is just a random orphan that was about to get arrested, and then after he gets rescued by Max, then they help Max out in trying to escape from the guards and stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty much a nice, return the favor sort of thing.
Yeah. And I don't have much when it comes to Simon because usually he's just like some random guy that just literally get picked up from like being rescued and stuff. Again, not much I can say about Simon, but one thing I also did find familiar when it comes to Simon, does he sound familiar to you?
Yes. Zeno Robinson. I was like, wait, Remy's in this show.
I just hear the
Remy's
voice. I hear the voice and I'm like, Remy Remington?
It is Remy Remington, yes.
Because he definitely sounds familiar. It definitely sounds familiar like Remy, and I'm like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, it's if you never looked up the cast list, you definitely would have guessed it was Zeno Robinson if you watched Big City Greens.
Well, Big City Greens, Owl House, he's been in so many roles, even Pokemon. I mean, dude, like the guy is everywhere, and I can't believe he's actually a part of Max and the Midknights. And now it makes me like more interested in this character.
Yeah, just by the fact of it's Remy Remington in medieval times. Like, it's Remy's ancestor.
I feel like, again, like there was nothing much to talk about with him for the first 2 episodes to me.
Like I said before, he's pretty much the rational one. He's a rational guy.
Look, there was nothing big about him when I was watching those first 2 episodes. So again, we'll look at Simon eventually, but if anything, I just gets weirded out with the fact that he's Remy. Okay, the voice of Remy or something. Damn it, Zeno, you're everywhere. Okay, so let's go talk about Millie, who's also got rescued after almost getting arrested after Max saved them. So she's an orphan girl who is the optimistic and energetic type despite the current harsh realities of the kingdom of Byjovia, where she lives. She looks up to her hero, Mublin the Wizard, and is a big fangirl. I mean, that's the one thing that I only care about when I first saw her. Like, she looks like she's kind of like a ditz to me. Like, she doesn't know stuff here and there, and then she's a big fan of a wizard who was retired, and it looked like she was a big fan of the wizard, by the way, if you saw Max and Midknights.
Yes, I'm gonna say this right now. Millie is my favorite character.
Already?
Yes. Millie is my favorite because of the fact, like, she's precious cinnamon roll because despite the fact that she's living in the current harsh realities of Kingdom of Byjovia, it doesn't prevent her from having a big smile or her positive outlook in life and wanting to help her friends. Like, she doesn't let the harsh realities of her whereabouts like get her down.
I think the only thing I cared about when I first saw Millie in those first episodes is the fact that she ended up actually like becoming like a huge fangirl herself. I'm like, wow, you really love this wizard, don't you? Even when he's naked.
Yeah, and she and
I just remember when the wizard popped up and he was like taking a shower and stuff, and he was screaming and everybody was screaming.
Yeah, I like the part where she even says, "Can I get your autograph? Can I get your autograph?"
Yeah, and she still says, "Can I get your autograph?" And I'm like, the rude of people.
Yes,
the nervous of people. And I'm like, I kind of like Merlin, by the way. We'll discuss him later. But Millie is kind of an interesting fangirl. Yeah, kind of like an everyday fangirl that people know and love, like fandom sometimes, they can be like that.
Yeah, they can be. Trust me, we've been there, so we can relate. So,
all right. Then there's this other guy named Kevin, and he's the first guy you actually see in Max and the Midknights that's helping Max out. He's an intelligent boy who loves to read books. It looks like he's a big book guy himself because he actually makes books and likes to read them, which is pretty sick. I like that. He uses logic and intelligence to help Max's gang. How do you like Kevin's first impression?
My first impression of Kevin is that I like the fact that Kevin is Max's first friend in Byjovia, where Max and her uncle Budrick go to this bar and they discuss and they learn about the backstory of Byjovia, about how King Conrad was gone and King Ghastly took over. And that's pretty much everything that Kevin tells Max and her uncle. And I do like how Kevin, like I said, he's the brains of the group, which does come in handy for the Midknights. So, and that's really all I got to say about it.
Kevin seems to be like the strategist, especially with the fact that he's like a bookworm. Looks like he knows his knowledge from reading books and stuff like that. I think he's the weakest out of them, though. Like, weakest by, like, fighting-wise, to say.
Yeah, but what he makes up for in fighting, he definitely makes... What he lacks in fighting, he makes up for in the strategic work.
Yeah, I think that's actually good. Again, this group is going to be fun. Seeing Max, Millie, Simon, and Kevin all together doing these missions and stuff.
Yes.
So, yeah, those are your main 4 characters that are going to be in this show. Now, let's actually talk about the other other secondary characters are going to be important as well. Like Uncle Budrick, for example, who is Max's uncle and traveling troubadour, who sings songs wherever they roam around the villages and stuff. He serves as Max's guardian and wants to protect her wherever they travel. What are your thoughts on Uncle Budrick so far?
Uncle Budrick, the way I could describe him is that Uncle Budrick is eccentric yet interesting. Now, of course, Uncle Budrick has his moments where he serves as a wise mentor to Max, this wise parental figure. But there are times where he can be really goofy, especially with his terrible singing.
Yeah, I mean, to be a troubadour and actually be out there singing to villages, how are you able to survive? Because, like, there are a lot of people that are throwing food at you, and I think the only reason why you're surviving is you're just collecting the food that they throw at you.
That, and also you can run fast.
Yeah, you can run fast. You can also escape fast. You also do have like a steady horse that can be able to just get you through everything. He's actually a really funny guy, and the fact that I think one thing that kind of impressed me was the fact that he knows about Byjovia, and he literally just like talks to Max about how Byjovia is before everything went to ruins because of the new king.
Yeah, that's exactly what I brought up, is that in a way Budrick serves as sort of a tour guide in his
he's a tour guide, but at the same time I like his characteristics. Like he's a very he seems like a funny guy, but he's also being a protective guardian. I mean, heck, in the first episodes you see how Max and Uncle Budrick was, like how they became to be and stuff. Like, yeah, I can't explain. Again, no spoilers here.
Yeah, I can't really explain it either because there's not much I could say other than that. Like, Uncle Budrick really does serve his purpose as Max's parental figure as well as a goofy comic relief.
Yeah, and he's really funny, by the way.
Yeah.
I really do hope he's fine because he did end up becoming the jester of King... what's his name again? King
Ghastly.
King Ghastly, yeah.
Yes, and also, a fun fact about King Ghastly, I have to say this right now, he's voiced by Brian Stefanik.
Whoa, really? King Lid Sr., no!
Apparently Lid Sr. became an evil king.
No, why did you tell me that now? I was surprised because I actually didn't see his voice familiar, by the way. I didn't know if it was familiar voice, by the way.
Apparently Brian Stefanik has this voice range.
Because I just never listened to it. Just like when you hear Brian Stefanik, he voices Lynn Sr. in the Really Loud House and the Loud House, and that's his regular voice, by the way.
Yeah.
But him being a king like that, he just really have a very high tone of voice, and I'm like, this can't be Brian.
Yeah, I never would have guessed it either.
Yeah, okay, interesting about him. Wow, I'm mind blown about that now. How about the wizard, Mumblin the Wizard? Because apparently this is Millie's big fangirl about her. She's a big fan of this wizard. But besides that, he's also a retired sorcerer. He did actually go out of retirement to help the kids out. So your thoughts about, Mumblin the Wizard right now?
Mumblin the Wizard does serve his purpose as think of Mumblin the Wizard as he's pretty much a fourth wall breaking Merlin. Like he's pretty much a comedy version of Merlin the Wizard, and Mumblin the Wizard is shown to be this retired royal sorcerer who is pretty much enjoying his retirement life ever since Ghastly outlawed magic, but since Mumblin came back, he has to get out of his comfort zone to help these kids. And so Mumblin comes in terms of that, coming out of retirement. It's an old flame rekindled.
Yeah, because, I really do like the fact that he just jaw hops out of being a grumpy old grandpa or something, and now becomes, a wizard that will help the kids out, especially with the fact that Byjovia is currently in crisis at the moment. I think we never actually talked about this in the story, but Byjovia is in crisis thanks to King Ghastly. It used to be a great town with a king that was really kind to all the people, but then the king somehow never came back to Byjovia, and this is where King Ghastly took over and, ruined up all Byjovia. I like that whole synopsis of, how Byjovia became to be.
The whole synopsis of how Byjovia came to be is that it's very common in the Middle Ages where a village or a kingdom is ruled by an evil tyrant. It's the same folklore Middle Age story that we have heard millions of times, but this takes a more different, more lighthearted comedic approach as opposed to when you watch a Middle Ages show, like let's say on HBO or something like that. It takes a very, very dark, and sinister tone.
We're talking about a kid's show here. I'm pretty sure we are not going that route.
Yeah, but I do like how Nickelodeon presents it, where like while it does present that Max and Midnights is a lighthearted, Middle Ages show that takes place in medieval times, there is some darkness to the ruling of King Ghastly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something about King Ghastly that kind of like just comes out to me is the fact that like he's selfish, he cares more for himself than everybody else in Byjovia, and that's why Byjovia is suffering. I mean, fucking rats are everywhere, dude. Like the thing about, I think the joke when it comes to this town is that there's a lot of things that they can eat, like rat jerky, and I'm like.
Yeah, there's even rat roaches.
Roaches, and like, oh my god, there's just so much stuff that like makes the town so bad.
Okay.
And I do like the fact that the whole heroine side of Max coming up to save Byjovia is going to be something great. I really hope that story actually goes that way, by the way.
Yeah, I think it will. I can say right now this definitely looks promising, and it will go to that route. Yes.
King Ghastly again, like, how do you feel about him? I know that he's just a selfish dude and stuff like that, but I have a feeling like he will get the throne. Something tells me like in this show, Max is going to take care of like what's going on with King Ghastly and then give the throne to whoever's happening. Again, so much twists that can happen because it's just only our first impressions, but something tells me Max is going to be a huge thing when it comes to bringing back Byjovia to greatness to say.
If I know how kids shows like these, especially Nickelodeon, will turn out. If I know how these series do usually play out, usually you're gonna see like final episode. I'm gonna call right now. Final episode is gonna be a showdown between Max and King Ghastly.
Yeah,
and Max will be the one to defeat King Ghastly.
Yeah, but I also do want to see more of like I know that it's probably gonna be like that, but I do want to see like what happened to the king. There's so many questions when it comes to the show at the moment. Like what happened to the king, the old king before King Ghastly came up? How about spoiler alert, by the way. What about Max's real parents?
Yeah, I do want to see where they touch upon Max's real parents.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see the show take that route, and also I want to see King Conrad play a significant role.
Because I did say Max and Uncle Budrick, so that Max is adopted by Uncle Budrick.
Yeah, and you got to wonder. If Uncle Budrick is the brother of Max's mom or Max's dad.
No. Did you see the second episode? She literally got picked up on the road.
I did see the second episode, but I'm just like, yeah, like where does she come from and how is Uncle?
Yeah, because I don't think you could be a brother to Max's parents if you get picked up on the road.
Yeah, and but I'm just wondering why she calls him like uncle or something like that.
Well, because she's the only well-known parental person that's there.
Okay, that makes sense. That does make sense also.
Yeah.
That makes sense also.
I'm like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? I don't think he's familiar with Max's parents. Again, I don't know.
Yeah, but like, no, usually when you hear uncle, you think like, okay, when you hear uncle, you usually think, the brother of a parent. But no, the uncle can mean different kinds of context.
Yes, it can be like different kinds. Maybe like a friend of someone, Yeah.
That could be,
yeah. All right, so let's talk about the overall animation of the show, because this reminds me of obviously Big Nate, considering Big Nate kind of got animated the same way as Max and the Midknights, but it tells me like it's a little bit better. Like, how do you feel about the animation for this show? Because like, I love the action scenes. I love how like 3D it can be. I can see like it being like a 3D CGI rendered when it comes to the animation, and it really works out. Like I can totally see the action scenes going really well. The characters look great, shiny, all that kind of jazz. Yeah, your thoughts on the animation overall?
The animation, you pointed this out really well, is that it's a nice blend of 3D and CGI. It pretty much looks to be like an imitation of stop motion. Not stop motion, but it's an imitation.
It kind of feels like stop motion because like if you see how the effects are, like that's not literal fire. It's literally like paper fire that's literally being thrown out. Even the smoke is like, something that you see from claymation to say.
Yeah, what it is that it pretty much looks like, a kid doodled on it, and it's pretty much look like a doodle, like a nice claymation.
No. It's like, how do you say this? Like a cotton ball. Like you see, like gray. You see, look. If you still, like I said, the animation style looks very claymation-like, but it's not claymation. Like they use 3D CGI characteristics, but when it comes to like the special effects, when it comes to the show, they don't really use literal fire or literal like things like of that nature. They literally just like throw out.
And that's what I like about it is that when you look at the animation as a whole, including how the characters look, how the fire is used, and all that stuff, it's a combination of many different styles of animation, many different animation techniques. It's a combination of different techniques.
Because right now you can see the village itself. The village definitely looks like it's CGI, 3D CGI rendered. But then the characters, when they move, it kind of reminds me of like a better version of Jimmy Neutron, to say. Like, obviously back then Jimmy Neutron was made with their kind of characteristics and their CGI. But this time it's a whole lot better. I mean, like, I do love the fact that like there's so much shade when it comes to the characters that it can actually be like a real live action show itself.
It's more polished. It's
yes,
it's more polished.
I can say, yeah.
Yeah, and the way the characters move is the way they run it definitely looks to be well polished.
I do love the whole action scenes too when you get to see like Max and the Midknights like running around with the guards and stuff. Yeah, and I do love the fact that like you don't care about what's going on in the background. Like you care more for the characters that are in front. So you get to see like Max running into the camera while the knights in the back literally just like crash into each other. I do like that kind of aspect. I'm like, you don't care much about stuff that's going on in the background. It could be just like frame by frame stuff. And then when you go into like the real life action stuff about the main characters, you really want to make sure they're animated well. And that's why you see that animation style go really well when it comes to action scenes like that.
Oh yes, frame by frame, and then you see like as you see the kids run around Byjovia, you see what goes around Byjovia.
Yeah, that too. Like you get to see
buildings.
like audience, you see like people from the villagers also seeing what's going on, and then like obviously the guards are like trying to catch them and stuff like that. Like again, so many great like action scenes for it that makes me think like, oh my god, they did a really good job when it comes to animating those kind of things.
Yeah, it's that kind of it's a kind of technique, it's a kind of animation style that they use that makes the show stand out in terms of its aesthetics.
So you said you've seen Big Nate before, right?
I've seen some. I've seen some, and yes, they do share the same animation style.
You think so? I feel like Big Nate kind of like a little bit dampened down when it comes to the animation. Besides this one,
just a little bit, because Big Nate takes place in a typical slice of life environment, whereas Max and the Midknights, when it comes to its environment, it's more action packed. It's more eventful. Yeah,
and I think it's actually like it stands out as its own thing.
Yeah, it does.
All right. Besides that, anything else do you want to bring up when it comes to, I mean, I think we kind of broke down everything when it comes to first impressions. I guess we could talk about the episodes. How do you like the first 2 episodes of the show?
The first 2 episodes I had really fun with, and I do hope that this show turns out to be very successful, because like I said before, Nickelodeon does need more shows under the belt. Yeah, and I feel like this is promising.
I'm impressed. I'm very impressed when it comes to the first 2 episodes of the show. I am enjoying it so far. I am really engaging with the story. I love the story at the moment, as there's so many questions to come up when it comes to the show. Like, again, we've explained this in our first impressions already, but there's probably got to be more questions coming up. I mean, who's that thing that King Ghastly was talking to?
Yes, it could
Who's
be.
that thing? Who's that thing that King Ghastly was talking to? Ooh, there's so many mysteries when it comes to the show, and I kind of engaged with it, and I really can't wait to see how Max and the Midknights will go as this comes along.
Yeah, when it comes to a show like this, you already know that more questions will be answered. There's going to be more plots, twists, and turns, and something tells me King Conrad's going to play a pretty significant role in one way or another.
Who knows? I mean, I have like my hunch that he's alive still.
It could be that he's either he's either alive but stranded in the woods or the forest or somewhere, or it could be that he's already dead and he's a ghost.
So first impressions wise, how do you think of the show overall?
What I think about the show overall is that it's a very fun, action-packed medieval 8 time show that knows that it's this funny, humorous take on the Middle Ages, and it has fun with it.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a really fun show. Again, I can't wait to see more of the show come up. You did also put this question up. Do you think it will be successful to a point where we see a second season?
Considering Nickelodeon's track record, I kind of doubt it because look at how they treat their shows outside of SpongeBob and Loud House. However, I'm hoping the Max and Midnights will be an exception.
Yeah, I think it will probably be okay. I have to say this. We are way too early to actually predict that. We are way too early to predict that, knowing Nickelodeon's track record.
They're too early to predict that, but at the same time, it's kind of fun to speculate on whether or not they'll
That's my
actually do
speculation right there.
Yeah.
I think it's too early to predict that we're going to say a second season. I think as the show continues on, we're only at 4 episodes in at the moment.
Yeah, that's a fair enough answer too.
Yeah, so I think we're still too early to actually predict the second season.
Yeah. Now I hope it does, but it is a bit too early to predict it, like you said.
Yeah.
So,
but I really do hope it does have a second season. It's just more like I can't say for now that it's gonna be having it.
I'm just gonna enjoy the present and then worry about the future later.
Yeah. Either way, Max the Midnights fans, you guys gonna be checking that out over at Nickelodeon. It airs new episodes every Wednesday on Nickelodeon, so please check it out when you can.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, we're impressed with the show.
Yes.
Hopefully you guys will like it too.
What can I say?